Council on Developmental Disabilities, we are your host with the Self-Advocacy Advisory Council. And we find it a pleasure to have you here. The purpose of today's meeting is to meet and greet. You're going to be able to visit with your legislators, and you're going to be able to hear some of their answers to some of the questions. If you do have questions, over here there's some tablets. Bring a pen, you can write down a question. And we do have a full slate of questions, but we may be able to fit a couple of questions in at the end, depending on the time. But however, any question that is submitted will be given to the legislators, and then they're pretty good about following up. This forum was founded in 2015, and there's many agencies and volunteers that make this an annual success. We have my co-host, Mar Orteliza. We have Dwayne Naganishi. He's from Goodwill. He's right there. He's our microphone specialist. We have Melissa Evangelista. She's with Easter Seals. I'm not sure she's here yet, but I just wanted to give her a shout out. We have, let's see, who else do we have here on my list? My co-host, Robert. Robert's my co-host. Robert Wong. And Robert will be saying the Hawai'i Pono'i. He knows it by heart. I wish I knew it by heart. I want to mention that this forum, the purpose of this forum, besides getting everybody together, is to advocate for change, advocate for integration. And how do we do that? By working with our legislators at the county and state levels. Oh, sorry about that. As you registered today, you received there should be didn't have the survey. Ooh. Survey. We do have the survey. Thank you. Saved me. It's one thing. Please complete the survey so we can continue to bring you the best forum possible. The survey may be returned to the registration table, which is over in the corner, which most of you registered. And by the way, if you're an agency that we haven't worked with, hasn't affiliated with us in the past, please register. Give us your email so we can put you on our mailing list so you get all the latest news about legislative updates and about what's going on in East Hawaii. And also you can return the survey here at this table. We do have sign language translators. Mahalo to the many legislators and county representatives in attendance this afternoon. We know that you will have a wonderful time. I guarantee it. And appreciate your commitment to East Hawaii, to the disability issues and the concerns that family members and self-advocates have. Today, your constituents have questions and concerns about disability-related issues in the areas that every year, there's 5 areas that we talk about during this forum: employment, education, health, housing, and transportation. We will talk story with our legislators about 4 o'clock. Here are my co-hosts, Robert Wong and Mar Orteliza. I mentioned before, Robert is an East Hawaii self-advocate. So, and Mar, I put this in here, so I wrote it, so I'm going to read it to you. Mar is the former advocate of the year for this forum. Mar goes out of his way. Mar is the host of Able Hawaii Artists. Many of you may not know what Hawaii Able Artist is, but it's an annual festival where individuals with disabilities bring their artwork and they display it for East Hawaii citizens in the community to see what the talents that they have and it was held earlier this month at Prince Kahui Plaza. I know I'm not doing justice to each of the co-hosts, so what I'd like to do is introduce Robert and Mar and let them speak for themselves. Robert.
Thank you. See, anything?
Anything you want to say about yourself? Anything? It's just free time.
I just want to say thank you to Easter Shoes and to everybody else for making this work, and I'm just pretty happy about things and about paddling and sports, and my heart's pumping, my bad. I'm just scared, I never talked on the mic, but yeah. I've been with Easter Seals for pretty long. Just happy about Auntie May helping us get through this whole year, and I hope she is working on it, but I'm still helping her and trying to make her happy, and I just felt like she's loved and everybody else. But yeah, thank you for everybody making this work. Yeah, that's about it.
Hello, everyone. Is my close enough? My name is Mar Arteleza, and I am a program specialist for Full Life. I've been there for 15 years, and I'm currently also working with Hawaii Care Choices, supporting people who are at the end of their life, providing advocacy for them. Providing advocacy, co-advocacy for people with disabilities has been a passion for 15 years for me. I've worked with a person who had a passion for taking underwater pictures and helped him develop his entrepreneurship. And through that experience, was able to establish an art festival that Jesse mentioned called Abled Hawaii Artists. And it's on its 16th year now. It just happened at the Prince Kuhio Plaza earlier this month. And it's done either in July to celebrate the Americans with Disabilities Act, or in October to celebrate the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Yeah, lots to say, but I'll just keep it really, really short. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy yourself.
Mahalo, Mar and Robert. Next, we have Jay Silver, Legislative Liaison for the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities, and he will say a few words.
Thank you, Jesse. Hi, my name is Chase Silver. I'm with the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'm here for my boss, Daintree Bartoldas, who couldn't be here today due to work commitments and travel. Essentially, the DD Council, we are led by advocates, by parents, by family members, by community members. We're a 28-person council led by those individuals. Sorry about that. And so essentially, the goal of the council is to make a better life for individuals with IDD through self-empowerment, self-advocacy, and working with legislators and county council members to affect statewide change as well as county-level change as well. This year we're working on things like improving housing options, making sure individuals that are on the Medicaid waiver program can work without losing their benefits. We're also working on things like having health disparity studies done for our population specifically, and we do statewide and county level work. So really any problem that you see that faces the IDD community within our state, you talk to us and we try to do our best to help you. And that's kind of part of what this event is supposed to be, which is why we've been holding it for over 20 years. So I want to thank you guys on behalf of the DD Council and my boss, and I'll hand it over to Jesse.
Thank you, Che. We're like a relay. Mark.
Thank you, Jesse. A part of being a co-advocate is holding space so that our people have the opportunity to be self-advocates and talk about what's really important in their lives so they can live meaningful, full lives. So one of the things I want to bring up also is that we want to also give recognition to the other members of our planning committee that we forgot to mention earlier. And Janela Matsumura of DOH Children and Special Health Care Needs. We all also want to acknowledge Lisa and Byron Yogi, who are parent advocates. And who else? Cheryl. Oh, also the Hilo High School KVIS Media. They are broadcasting today's forum on the Hilo High School YouTube channel. And this recording today will be posted on the Hawaii Island Disability Legislative Forum Facebook page. So we appreciate the assistance of our volunteers, the East Hawaii Self-Advocacy and Advisory Council, also known as SAC, and the Hilo High School Key Club. The Key Club was here early to help set up the chairs, tables, and will be here later on to help with the cleanup. May we have a round of applause for our planning committee and our volunteers today. Robert?
What is this thing now? Now we will present the national anthem singing by Kristen Lay.
Please stand for the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glares of bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Robert will sing the Hawaii Pono'i.
Hawai'i Pono'i Nanai Komoi Kalalilai Keali Moku Alani e Kamehameha e Nakave Pane Mekani e. Oh. Hawai'i Pono'i Nanai Komoi Ka Niali Keali Makualani Kamehameha Nakave Pane Mekanie.
Mahalo, Ms. Lay and Robert. Very nice.
Okay, so now, I hope this doesn't make a weird noise, but we're going over to Kahu Kauila Haumea, who will provide us with an opening oli. Are you going to sit right here?
Ika kumu male inu a I e olio e kama me hilu I no o ika va a Yesue na inu na mare e o tua e hilo no mai e kua e hiho no vai e tue e mahio no kai e tua e hilo no na e kua e na io no mara e tue halio o na vai e kumu e nea I ke kio na hife o na re e tua e hinu na e pua e hiu na e kuu e lono na e pua ne heno, na mio ona e kua, valino na e tue, e no ika e ke kino hua, e te no na me he tua, e hilo na ika waa, e noho e io, ne keho ika mahalo, e nono e mahalo, e mene.
Mahalo nui loa.
Sure thing.
All right, mahalo nui loa, Kauila Haumea. A very inspirational person for me. He also inspired me to establish healing arts in the Able Hawaii Artists 16 years ago. And from there, he has then evolved his passion into this incredible organization. If you ever want information about this incredible organization, just stop by this table right here. And we'll be also featuring other organizations along our little journey. And I got to put my glasses on. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about October. I kind of Talked about that a little bit earlier. October is recognized nationally as Disability Employment Awareness Month. And furthermore, this year, the legislators enacted Hawaii Bill number 794, designating the month of October as Disability Awareness Month, Employment, Enrichment, and Inclusion. Yeah. So it's really great that the legislators are finally catching up to what's going on here on the Big Island, that I refer to as the Renaissance of Inclusion on the Big Island. So in this bill, 794, the recognition of employment challenges and successes of persons with disabilities in the state of Hawaii is recognized, and therefore this is an important month of activity. October is a very important month of various activities and events to raise awareness of the many benefits of hiring people with disabilities and the many talents that they bring to our Hawaii businesses and communities. There are two such important events happening here on Hawaii Island in the month of October. One of the events I previously mentioned is the Abled Hawaii Artists, again on its 16th year. And for those of you who don't know what Abled Hawaii Artists is, it's an annual celebration of the spectrum of creativity and while promoting inclusive entrepreneurship in the arts, which was held earlier this month at the Prince Kohio Plaza. The other important event celebrating Disability Employment Awareness Month is today's 9th annual East Hawaii Island Legislative Forum. So congratulations to everyone here for attending this very auspicious 9th annual event. You're all part of the Renaissance of Inclusion on Hawaii Island. In the state of Hawaii, employment enrichment and inclusion is achieved by increasing the number of people with disabilities who are employed. Just like you and me, people with disabilities receive the training and education that is necessary to work in integrated competitive employment. Just like you and me, people with disabilities, they have enriched our community by bringing their talents to the workforce. And just like you and me, people with disabilities develop workplace friendships that last a lifetime and add to fiber that make our communities stronger. I'd like to call up Amy Miwa, the governor's liaison for East Hawaii Island, who will present the governor's proclamation. It's nice to see. Let's go up here, Amy. Do you want to do it here or up there? Okay. It's nice to see Amy the second time in 1 month. Yes. Yeah. And you're going to give you a lei. Okay. I'm going to hand over the mic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy. I am Governor Green's liaison for East Hawaii. Governor apologizes, but I'm sure all of you know he's still deeply embroiled in getting Maui back up to speed, so he sent me instead. So thank you for letting me be here. But before I start, I wanted to, Mara was talking about the able artists. I never heard of it before, and I was like, oh, okay. So I went to check it out. Next year, I highly recommend, if you never ever went, you guys got to go. It is amazing. There's just such a variety of art and entertainment and information. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So thank you for including me in that too. Okay, so from Governor Green, whereas October 2023 marks the 78th anniversary of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and whereas the United States Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy announced advancing access and equity as the theme for this month's or this year's National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and whereas Hawaii is an employment-first state and has an interagency agreement with the 4 counties within the state of Hawaii, and whereas this interagency agreement enables the state and counties to work together and to share resources in supporting employment for people living with disabilities. And whereas people with disabilities maximize their inclusion, accessibility, independence, and productivity by learning in settings that provide cutting-edge training and learning systems, thus enhancing employment opportunities, increasing productivity, and eliminating barriers to meaningful inclusion, equity, and employment. And whereas progress towards a diverse workforce requires both a long-term commitment and an active participation of public and private leaders throughout the state. Now, therefore, I, Josh Green, MD, Governor of the State of Hawaii, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Disability Employment Awareness Month in Hawaii, and ask the people of the Aloha State to join me in observing the month of October and every month of the year with appropriate programs and activities designed to promote the message that advancing access and equity is vital as people with disabilities add diversity, value, and talent to our workplaces and communities. So this proclamation is for the whole month, and it was signed on the first day of October 2023 by Josh Green, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, for sure. Thank you, Amy. And now over to you, Jesse.
Mayor Mitch Roth signed a proclamation also for the County of Hawaii. And Mar will read that proclamation.
Thank you, Jesse. Before I read the proclamation, I just wanted to say that it's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces out in the crowd. So I would like to read the County of Hawaii proclamation by our Mayor, Mitch Roth. Whereas October marks the 78th anniversary of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and whereas the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Disability Employment Policy announced Advancing Access and Equality as the theme for National Disability Employment Awareness Month for 2023. And whereas persons with disabilities maximize their inclusion, accessibility, independence, and productivity by learning in settings that provide cutting-edge training in systems that enhance employment opportunities, increase productivity, and eliminate barriers to meaningful inclusion, equity, and employment. And whereas Hawaii County supports the statewide Employment First policy, including reliable and effective transportation routes, affordable and accessible housing initiatives, and superior education and workforce training systems. And whereas Hawaii County recognizes and commends its citizens, organizations, agencies, and businesses that include persons with disabilities when determining employment needs and promote the guiding principle that progress requires both long-term commitment and active participation of leaders throughout the state. Now, therefore, I, Mitch D. Roth, Mayor of Hawaii County, do proclaim October 25th as East Hawaii Disability Employment Awareness, Employment Enrichment and Inclusion Day in the County of Hawaii, and encourage all citizens to continue to take steps throughout the year to advance employment first by recruiting, hiring, retaining, and advancing individuals with disabilities, and to work toward full integration and participation for all Hawaii County citizens. In witness thereof, I have under here to set my hand and cause the seal of the County of Hawaii to be affixed. Done this 25th day of October, 2023 in Hilo, Hawaii.
Mahalo, Mar. we're going to stand right next to her. That's perfect. Is this good? Yeah, we're not professionals, so but we'll get it. My day job, only time I have connections to TV is I watch it. Now we're going to get into the interesting part of the program. The food is, I believe, is here. It'll be shortly. It'll be starting to be served in the next 15 minutes. We have the universal food. There's like four universal foods. One of them is pizza. And there's also apples and other goodies back there that, besides apples, that you can, and water, extra water too. So enjoy yourselves. Now we're going to be getting into the this little talk. We're going to be talking. Excuse me? Oh, excuse me. I have to turn it back to Robert.
My bad. No, it's all right. Housekeeping will keep bathrooms are outside to the right, and food will be served shortly.
Right here, please.
Please bring surveys to the registration table.
Perfect. I will let you know, Robert and I have never, and Mar, we three amigos. Okay, that's a movie, but I had to reference it. We have never worked together, the three of us. Robert, it's been a joy. We're going to have a next 15 minutes, approximately. We're going to have some talk story. First one up is Che. Che is the liaison for the Developmental Disabilities Council, State of Hawaii. I will let Che talk about the things that he would like to. Oops, sorry about that. Che already talked. I'm ahead of myself. I'm getting hungry. Okay, so the next one to speak, Lisa. A parent advocate. We thought it would be important to bring a parent advocate. So, Lisa, would you like to come up here? And this is a mark right here.
Hi, my name is Lisa Yogi. I'm a parent of a developmentally disabled son. He's 40 years old now, so it's a long journey, but I should say that in this journey, I've experienced a lot of joy, a lot of challenges, and a lot of learning. So as I became in different stages, a caregiver, a provider, a mother, I've really learned to get stronger by learning how to handle this whole situation. In the beginning, Joshua was very, very easy. At a young age, very easy to handle, manage, very loving, thoughtful little kid. But as he grew into his teenage stage, it became more challenging. So he developed dual diagnosis, which he became not only cerebral palsy, he also had bipolar and schizoaffective disorder. I had very big difficulties when he was in high school because there was no system in place for participants or individuals like him in the education. We were lost. There was no specific placement for them. As you enroll them, the teachers or the administrators did not know where to place them. So that was the time when I believe advocates really came out and came forward. The parents who really cared and advocated for their special education program. And that I was really very grateful about. as my son graduated, it got better and better. Case managers became very active in trying to place them after high school. Although he had to graduate earlier, at least at that time, he was already interviewed by a case manager of the state to see if he's capable of working or not. So that was very good for us because at least we didn't feel so lost. Everything had to be learned gradually and learned how to put him. After that, when we realized that he cannot really work. So then they had a program at Goodwill. That was the next step for individuals like him who had very little capability to work. So that we were very thankful for also. So after the whole time he was there, they taught him a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He learned this basic, like custodial type of work, just to do for the house, his own use. And then it became more complicated. Yeah, he acquired this bipolar disorder, and that's when we really needed a lot more of the government help. We asked for help from the DDD division, Department of Health, Mental Health, and the two departments at that time were separate. Now they're in sync, which is really a big progress. They helped us with the behavioral plans of Joshua, and we were able to manage it even if it was very difficult because it entailed a lot of like emotional stress, tactics on how to redirect him and things like that. But I'm really thankful that I became a part of the DD Council. For 8 years I served, and I have learned a lot on how to advocate more, and the process of which is learn to write, and then submit your letters to DD Council members that you know of, or if you don't know of them, ask. Because with the letters, you can be really heard. It's more powerful than just talking and complaining. That's what I learned. And through that, I go through the case managers, I write letters. To their higher ups, I wrote letters. DD Council, I encourage people to write letters. Then it becomes possibly even a bill, whatever changes. Okay, but I know I have to stop. But thank you so much. I really learned a lot from becoming a parent and a DD Council member, and I hope you do too. Okay.
Mahalo, Lisa. Now, this is the fun part. Legislators, about the next 5 minutes, if you like to, there's seating up here. You can make your way up. That includes mass transit if Victor Candle's here. I'm not sure if he is or not. The fun part is food's being served, and Mara is going to be talking to some of you in the community, some of you vendors, and Mr. Policeman. Mara wants to come over and talk to you.
All right. Originally, I agreed to help co-host because I thought I'd be running around and get my exercise for today. But I'm going to stand right here so that way we can ensure that this really tall guy can be seen. And so, because I have my favorites, these organizations have been pulled from a bag that I'm going to ask to come up here, a representative from the organizations, so that way I can talk to you and ask questions about your organization. So. Everyone else here can know about them. The very first, we're going to have 3 categories: home and community-based service provider, government agency, and then community organization. So the first organization I'd like to call up is the Ark of Hilo. Robert Efford, if you could come up and tell us about the Ark of Hilo.
Thanks so much. It's so encouraging to see so many advocates. right? What you may not know is the Arca Hilo, we're celebrating our 70th birthday next year. And I actually just learned that myself a couple months ago. I'm still relatively new to the Arca Hilo. So I investigated further. I wanted to know why the Arca Hilo was founded and who founded the Arca Hilo. Well, in 1954, in about June of that year, a man by the name of James Case, he was one of the founding attorneys at Carl Smith, and Carl Smith, not founding attorneys because the firm was founded here in Hilo in 1857, but he was a Harvard-trained attorney, and he had a son with a developmental disability. So imagine yourself back in 1954, before Medicaid funding, before the ADA, before all the Olmstead Act, all the things that we are privileged to have today at our disposal. And Jim said, it's not good enough for my son, right, to be institutionalized, to not have community access. And I share that with you because we're all here a part of the same mission, standing on the shoulders of people like Jim Case. And we just want to thank him and others like him over the years that have helped propel us to where we are today. And I'm just so thrilled that this island, of all places, has such an incredible community. People like Kauila, right? Sammy Sampaga, who walked around the islands, right? Darwin Nagamini, who's sitting in a hospital in San Francisco with a heart transplant, but refuses to give up. And I share that with you because those are our heroes. And you know what I'm talking about because those are the people that inspire us each and every day and why we're here, right? So I could talk a lot about the Arca Hilo, but I really want to focus on the people we're here to serve. And I want to give everyone a challenge that this is not the time to let up. We have a big challenge ahead of us. We have about 400 kids between the age of 9 and 19 coming into adulthood over the next 10 years. We want to prepare them for employment, right? A lot of these kids, and Kyle was somewhere around here, but he said before getting a job at the Arc of Hilo, and he's doing an incredible job, he was playing video games, right? Do you mind if I share that with you, with everybody, Kyle? And this young man, if you saw him today and what he does to contribute to this community, not charity, but contributing economically, right? And to see the smile on his face when he gets a paycheck for a job well done, the power and dignity of employment, the power and dignity in community inclusion, being able to have recreation in outrigger canoeing amongst 2,500 canoers across the islands. We now have 100 that have special needs. Incredible, right here in Hilo, right? So there's a ton to talk about, but I just want to thank each and every one of you for the work you're doing because it takes a village, right? So let's not give up. We have a lot ahead of us.
Thank you, Robert. From Arc of Hilo. And we're running a little bit late, so I won't have time to call up the other organizations I had in mind. But it's important for us to call up the Hawaii Police Department. If one of your representatives can come up here and just talk a little bit, talk story about some of the things that you folks are doing recently. Just one person. All right. Okay. And let's stand right here and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Durr. I'm with the Community Policing Section here in Hilo. And we were really happy when we got invited to come and be with you guys. The primary reason is we want to learn as police officers how to appropriately help when there's a situation where police are called and there's a DD person involved, because we want to make sure our approach is the best way to go about it. So we're here to help learn, and we want to know more about it. So that's why we're here. And then just recently, I see some familiar faces in the audience. We are doing a crisis intervention training where officers are learning how to deal with developmentally disabled persons, people with that are mentally ill, have substance abuse, so we can better learn how to deal with those situations in an appropriate manner. So thank you. I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and having us here today.
Thank you very much. One more? Okay, we have one more quick one, and I'd like to ask Rosalinda Larkin to come up here because the work that you folks are doing currently is really involved in what was just talked about with our first responders. Okay, can the legislators make your way up to the panel area while we have Rosalinda talk for a few minutes?
Aloha and good evening or good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of our Board of Directors, committees, and ambassadors, we would like to say thank you to the DD and to all of you, to the community, for being a part of this legislative forum. Who we are ASDC stands for Autism Support and Disability Call Center. This is a newly established call center on the Big Island. It's still under work in progress, but we do have a family and support group. And our mission is to directly link people, individuals with autism and their families to all of you, to all the professional provider assistance. Together with the law enforcement, we partner with law enforcement, we will be able to utilize good resources to provide every means and resources that an individual needed. In the future, we are planning to have a facility that's offering a day-to-day services. The big compartment of the call center is to be able to assist the paramedics and law enforcement in facilitating transfers of all individuals that is in crisis from the community to the healthcare professions and to the hospital. But like I said, that is still a work in progress. We're needing funding, we're needing support, but we wanted to thank everybody. We are here because of you guys. We are here because we wanted to advocate and we wanted to bridge the gaps in the community. We wanted to continue to educate and work together. And I just recently participated in a CIT training with the law enforcement. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Jesse Floyd and Mar, who is my community partners, and to all of you. We are not here, the reason we're here is because of the community and the family that we serve. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We do have time for one more short speaker, which is not short, but for a short speech from a former Senator Ocasio.
Aloha. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone here tonight for taking the time to be here. It's a very important gathering to speak to our legislators, to hear from our legislators, to be civically engaged. When we talk about community-based civics, we know that showing up and using your voice and having advocacy from the lived experience, from care providers, from families is incredibly important. My name is Laura Ocasio. I'm former state senator for District 1 here in Hilo. It now currently goes all the way out to Pepe'ekeo. I was appointed by Governor Ige in 2021 and I was honored and humbled to serve this community for 2 years. 2021, I feel like one of our hugest legislative advancements was the banning of underpaying sub-minimum wage for persons with disabilities, and this discrimination. And so we would like to continue to see more legislation in the future, especially around funding and access to care. Of course, we can talk about equity, but if we don't have access here on Hawai'i Island, then there is no equity. So just wanted to say thank you. I think 3 things I would like to say in terms of being an advocate at the legislature is self-advocacy, number 1. Like I said, the lived experience and those related is very important, and that voice is incredibly resounding when you're talking about these issues. I also would like to say collaborative advocacy. So right here I see thousands of people represented by each and every one of these organizations, and of course each and every one of your family members and folks that are in a close circle and who are affected and impacted. And so that collaborative advocacy is huge because it raises the voice and it raises the pressures. You know, especially when there's a session that has 3,000 bills, it's really important to make sure the voice is heard. And lastly, intersectional advocacy. Again, in a community-based civic leadership model, those intersections are really important. Those who are also seeking, to not be discriminated against, like aligning with LGBTQ voices, perhaps also the voices of the unsheltered populations in our community, and other intersections, like, for example, we all need clean water, so those kinds of things. And so bringing in that intersectional voice and those advocacy is very important. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. I appreciate your time and effort. My name is Laura Casio. Mahalo.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, and she and the other legislators will have so much more to talk about, and will be able to answer your questions later in our program. So, Jesse.
Well, thank you. You know, we're going to start with questions here in about 30 seconds, but I want to say something. Everybody knows what 6 degrees of separation is, right? We all know it. You know how you improve your advocacy? By talking to every one of these tables. Because you never know when you may need them, or that somebody you know may need the information that you're going to garner from meeting them. That's how I do it. If I work with, I see an agency I don't know anything about, and not even in my field that comes, I still talk to them because people have needs, and sometimes their needs are. Sometimes they surprise you because I talk with somebody and then boom, within a week. The question is do you know? And I go, yeah, that agency, and I have their number. And I put them in contact with it. Anyway, so no more talking. We're going to start with the question. Now, the purpose of this panel discussion, this is a talk story. We are all neighbors. We're all family. Okay? We're all Ohana. So the questions are going to be to provide you some information, but the purpose of today's forum is to go ahead and to give you the opportunity to advocate, to get involved. How do you advocate? You get involved. Legislators are constantly asking if their constituents would go ahead and give them feedback. When a bill comes up, they need to know, is it important enough to vote yes, or is it important enough to say no? And they cannot do it very well in a vacuum. Because what happens if they say no, and then the majority of the people say, we wanted that after the fact? Well, to me, that's not fair. So speak up. Get on committees. Let your voice be heard. More importantly, let who you work with, or your family member, or your child, or your brother, or your sister, let them get involved. Teach them to advocate. Take them to meetings. Take them to county council meetings. Okay? Take them to the Mayor's Committee on Persons with Disabilities, which meets once a month. Come to my East Hawaii Disability, DD Council, Development Disabilities Committee meeting that I hold monthly. Okay, come to these forums. Come to AHA. Okay, so we'll start with the questions now. Oh, by the way, food. They told me that this thing's in the way. However, there's a slight problem. If I move this for you people, I'm in the way. So what do you want me to do? I'll move it. By the way, it's going to take a little bit of noise. Hey, it has legs. Okay, can everybody see from over here? Okay, if you can't see, speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. So we're going to start with some questions, nice questions. And the purpose of these questions, as I mentioned earlier, is to get the community involved. Okay, now, some of the questions, by the way, some of these questions are problems, and problems sometimes don't have answers, don't have easy solutions. However, that's not the point. The point is to begin a discussion. Okay, so I'm going to ask the first question. As soon as I get the right page. All right, here we go. This is question, by the way, I put a 1 after question 1 so I can keep track. Sometimes it is said that progress is slow. Citizens become concerned when they perceive those problems are not fixed in a timely manner, such as the congestion on Highway 130. Who loves to travel Highway 130? That's the one between Keau and Pahoa. For those of you that live in Hilo, how many of you love to travel between Hilo and Keau? It's fun, isn't it? That road's okay usually because it's usually a clogged 2-lane. I hate 1-lane clogged roads. Okay. What do you suggest citizens do to learn more about the successes that have been led to improvements in education, employment, health, housing, and transportation in East Hawai'i Island? And that would be one. So how do you suggest they learn? Okay. And then what plans that you may have in the works for East Hawaii living to get better, improved? Because we're always in a process of improvement, right? Better roads, better sidewalks, better housing. Okay. And then lastly, how can they get involved? So, who would like to start? Just whoever would like to, pick up a mic and start yapping.
Hello? Okay, right on. Aloha, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Heather Kimball. I'm the County Council Chair and the representative for District 1, which is the district that goes from Singing Bridge all the way up to Waipio and includes a bit of Waimea. I first want to just thank Jesse and the whole organizing team for putting this together. I think this is my fourth or fifth forum with you guys. I've been doing it a lot.
Most of them have been Zoom.
Yeah, for the second one in person, which is awesome. And I want to thank all of you for being here. It's really just an honor to continue to be invited, so thank you for having me. And as always, I want to mahalo our ASL interpreters. Thank you for your time. And, as I said in the West Hawaii Civic Center, you guys are the front line of access, and so we really appreciate all you do to make sure everyone is included in these forums. So to the first part of your question, yes, government is often slow, and it's intentionally so, because the decisions that we make in government are really impactful, and they last a long time. And so you don't want us making rash or quick decisions. You want decisions that are well thought out and fully deliberated and vetted by the entire body. And the best way, I think, for folks to learn about that process is to participate in it. And one of the ways to do that is to, pick a bill or something that is of interest to you and track it and watch it go through the process, submit testimony or something like that. Another way to get even more deeply involved is if you have an idea that would make sense as a piece of legislation, come to one of us legislators and propose it. And, often we'll work with you to turn it into a bill, to turn it into a viable piece of legislation. And I've done that with several bills. There was one that I worked on with a class through a semester at UH, and, you get to see how the sausage is made. It's messy. Writing these bills it takes a while, and we go through a lot of drafts, and it's pretty ugly, but it's a process that's important, and frankly, I really enjoy engaging in. So, if you guys ever want to participate with me in going through that process, I'm happy to do that. Why don't I leave it there, and then I can come back, and then we can kind of stay consistent on the topic, and I'll pass it on to my fellow legislators on that first.
Okay, just a quick comment. My name is Victor Kendall. I'm the administrator for the Mass Transit Agency, and I am not nearly as articulate as any of these people, and I don't know how I ended up on this panel. So I'm guessing that I will end up having some responses to some of the specific questions, but thank you for your patience. And I think when I look out here and I see this participation, I think that kind of speaks to what Heather was saying about being engaged and being able to be part of the change.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Chris Todd, and I'm currently in the State House of Representatives. The district I represent has part of Hilo. It's Keaukaha, Pane'ewa, some of Lower Waikea, and it pushes through Keau and has everything between the highways up through kind of the beginning of Fern Acres and Ainaloa, Orchid Land Estates out in that area. So as of about a year ago, I now represent part of Highway 130 after just being in Hilo prior to this. So for that project specifically, as the brand new chair of the Transportation Committee, for the first time in my life, I've had to have like a actual opinion and have some sense of responsibility now for that project specifically. So for Highway 130, just to level with you, in a lot of ways, the area of Puna, right? You got to figure that every dollar in state money and county money, it's fought over by everyone all over the state, right? And we don't have enough money. I think there's a lot of government employees here who wish they were paid a little bit better, who wish their AC was a little bit better at work, who wish they had just a lot of things that they do not have, and they try to make do. And nothing's any different up at the state capitol. The state capitol has leaky roofs. It needs about $75 million in renovations that currently have not happened. The pool around smells really bad right around the capitol. It just kind of is what it is. So Highway 130 is caught in that same place. To actually remedy that situation, you're probably looking at $250 to $300 million. And getting something like that to that magnitude actually funded is a very, very difficult. And it really comes down to the area representatives, which is now me in part, but also the community really coming together to make sure that it is made a priority at the state level, and that beyond that there are public transportation solutions available at the county level, that there's federal money that's delivered. But the longer I'm in this job, this is going to be year 8, I get more and more depressed. So I just want to put that out there. It's very, very upsetting how slow government moves. The money that I've been able to secure for a lot of the DOE schools, a lot of it just sits there and sits there. There's money that I originally secured in 2017, as an example, for the Hilo High School track and field, and the contract was awarded like 1-2 months ago, and that's 6 years later. So it is very frustrating, but really the only way to fix that is for more people to get involved. I had a town hall with Senator Joyce San Buenaventura in Keau 3 months ago, and 14 people showed up, and that's the most I've ever had show up. So I just want to put in perspective how little interest there is sometimes. But really, I think, I know I'm talking a lot, sorry, Sue. But beyond that, I think the biggest thing is, and the easiest thing to do is find a way to form a personal relationship with your elected official. I'll give you one example. We passed legislation in either my first or second session that created and added 4 permanent staff members for child welfare services, specifically for East Hawaii, because their caseloads were out of control, so they couldn't check in on foster kids on a regular basis to make sure that they're okay, that they're not being abused, that they're just being taken care of. Joe O'Connell, who worked for the state at that time, came to me. He came and testified a couple times about his experiences, and we passed the bill and created 4 new positions. So, things like that can happen, but I think the easiest way is that personal approach. Thanks.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Sue Liloi. I represent Council District 3, Keaukaha, Pane'ewa, similar to Representative Todd, all the way out to Keau and HPP. As he mentioned, this is a new district for me, so I also have Highway 130 I think the question was, how do you learn to participate? And building off of what Representative Todd just shared, it really is a network and it really is personal relationships. I will have to say, Chris sits as the Transportation Committee Chair for the House, and we also have Senator Lorraine Inouye, who also sits as the Chair for the Transportation Committee on the Senate side. And here back home, we have our Public Works Committee. And so that relationship that we have from the county right on up through the state, along with our partners at the Department of Transportation with NSNIFN, who lucky enough is a family member to me, allows for a lot of collaboration. So I think that network that we have as policymakers, and really we get along great, but we also look forward to what community is suggesting. And as Chris said, it really is that personal relationship. And just on a personal level, I have a son with special needs. So anytime a piece of legislation is coming forward, I'm always looking at it and how it would impact those and our family members with special needs. So although, as Heather mentioned, it's fun about how the sausage is made, when it's put to other members, other legislative members, we're all taking a very personal approach. And so I just want to assure you that we have advocacy on both sides of the aisle for those with disabilities and family members who support them. Thanks.
Well, thank each and every one of you. I think those answers went rather well. Question 2. Historically, the problem of the lack of affordable housing. Every year we talk about affordable housing. However, this year there's a little, what do you call it? Housing prices went to the roof. Rental prices that went even higher than the roof. So the question is given those spikes, costs are going up. What's to expect in the development of affordable housing?
Hey, thanks. I'll give the mic over quicker this time. Yeah, so I was actually in a meeting about, let's say 3 or 4 months ago, where we had the State House Housing Chair. His name is Troy Hashimoto, a very bright guy out of Maui, and he basically gave us a complete breakdown of the nexus between the county, the state, the federal government, every housing program we have in place, how much it costs to build something, and again, just very, very depressing. So, as an example, right now, there are federal and state programs that basically incentivize developers to construct affordable housing. For the state to provide that credit to a developer, it costs $250,000 per unit. And that's not the cost of the unit. That's just the cost from the state side to incentivize a developer to make it affordable, which is pretty gross. So honestly, I think that the long-term solution here, because the private sector is not going to be able to solve the problem, is we need a massive increase in affordable housing construction by government. But to do that, you need people to be able to trust government. You need government to be able to actually do things quickly and effectively. You need people to feel that those projects are going to be well managed, that they're going to be on budget, that they're going to be maintained over time. And, that's kind of up to government to prove in a lot of ways. But there's not going to be a solution that's going to come. The market's not going to figure itself out. The current system of tax credits does not work. It costs too much money with very little to show for it. And that's kind of the situation we're in now. I think we need just a massive increase in public housing construction. But until we figure that part out, I think it's kind of where we're at.
Thanks, Chris. I had an opportunity to talk to Senator Joy San Buenaventura, who chairs our Health and Human Services Committee. And this last year, they infused $200 million into housing for disabled and disabled adults. So now, they worked really hard this year. It's the most amount of money that's actually been geared and focused to that respective target group. So in addition to the $200 million that the state has put in. I think at the county level, we also have contributed, this year will be $11 million for housing. And so it's our hope that we can braid all of that money, the $200 million and then the $11 million, to start developing, as Chris said, massive amounts of housing that is needed. In addition to myself and Heather, we also look at philanthropic dollars along with nonprofit organizations that can do that work. And oftentimes, a lot of money is left on the table for those with disability. And so we're trying to leverage that equity piece to provide equal housing for those with disabilities. And then finally, and Heather will love this because her husband is an architect, we're trying to integrate a lot of things into our construction codes. And one thing that I'm a huge advocate for is our universal codes. Universal codes are actually providing for disability bathrooms, along with showers, toilet fixtures, which not only serve our disability community, but our aging kupuna community. And so we're actually trying to tackle housing from all kinds of angles, but also leveraging our aging population along with our disabled population. So those are some of the goals that we have kind of going forward.
So I'll add to this conversation a little bit in the sense that I think there's three aspects to the housing picture, and my colleagues here have talked in depth about the construction piece. We just need more inventory, and we need it in a way constructed in a way whether the government is subsidizing the infrastructure so developers can develop more cheaply, or we're subsidizing the project as a whole. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is keeping housing that already exists in housing. So I mentioned this at the West Hawaii Forum. Take a guess what percentage of the units, housing units on this island in Hawaii County are vacant? It's 16%. That's a huge percentage of properties that could be used for long-term housing that are either second homes not used, short-term vacation rentals. They're vacant. A healthy housing market would have 4% at any given time. So, one of the pieces of this is addressing the short-term vacation rental issue, the absentee owner issue, and trying to incentivize people putting these units into long-term housing. That would add a lot of inventory. The third piece of this is actually keeping people in housing. So we all know the stories of, I had car trouble, I had to get a new car, I couldn't make rent. I had a major medical issue, I had to pay my medical bills, I couldn't make rent. There was a project a few years ago by Hawaii Appleseed where they took $500,000 and they put it into a pool thinking they'd help, maybe 100 so families, bridge that gap. They ended up helping over 500 families with that money, just making it through that one paycheck so that they could stay in their home. As a council, Sue and I, as well as our colleagues, have supported various programs over the last couple of years, especially with the CARES money and the ARPA money, to make sure that we can help people, whether it's rental assistance or mortgage assistance, to stay in their homes. So I think those are the three of the key pieces. There's a whole other conversation to be had about density and allowing development in our urban core areas that are close to home, close to work, close to school, close to medical facilities and whatnot, and ensuring that instead of encouraging sprawl and placing people out where it's more difficult to provide services, we're actually creating more of that density in our urban internal cores like Hilo, like Kailua Kona, like Waikoloa. And so that's another part of the discussion. But I think that there's things that we're working on in all of those areas. One final pitch I'll make is that when it comes to housing that is subsidized currently by the county, anybody across this entire country is eligible to be on the wait list for one of those units. Isn't that crazy? Like, somebody from Minnesota that's never spent a day in their life here, nothing against Minnesotans, they're lovely people, but are you Minnesotan? You're not. Okay. There's nothing against Minnesotans, but, that has been an issue. So one of the things that we're working on in the county right now is a preference for folks that either reside here or who work within a certain area of the housing. We want to ensure that the housing that we develop, that we subsidize, is actually provided for people of this county. Thank you.
Mahalo. It has been asked if we take direct questions from the audience, and we try that in 1 year past, but we don't. However, and I mentioned this earlier, you have questions. If you have a specific legislator you would like to ask the question, put that, and they will get the question right to their hands. Okay, and I'm sure they will, and then put contact information, and they will respond to you. Okay, I think in all fairness, is that correct? I think that's correct. So don't hesitate. You have a question? You have a concern? You're welcome to bring it over there. I do have an opening in one question, so I'm going to ask Mr. Kendall. You want to know why you're here? Question. What improvements to Hawaii County mass transit have been made that you can speak of?
That is an easy answer. So the question was, am I from Minnesota? No, I'm from Oregon. And that kind of makes me an Oregonian, only I kind of want to think of myself as Hawaiian because I have genuinely adopted the culture and the interest of being here. So when I did get here officially in June for this job, I was very excited about what this opportunity is. And it's an opportunity because I know that my predecessor came in and made a lot of advancement for mass transit as it related to the transportation plan. And so I've been honestly astonished at the progress that's happened leading up to me starting in June. And it's been a challenge just to keep up with all of the various things that he started and I've been progressing. So you're probably familiar with a lot of our services. We've got the paratransit, we've got the shared taxi. We've got shared taxi, by the way, is free for the first 4 miles, etc. And then our transit system is currently fare-free, our fixed route. So we've got a lot of stuff that's going on with that. You may be familiar with some trouble that we had with some bus stops as far as compliance with ADA requirements. We just completed the fixes for that and got the stamp of approval from the Department of Justice. And what I know now is that through that process, we identified certain stops and made that compliant. What I also know is there's a culture here where people wave at the bus, and that's historical. And we want to get to a point where it isn't, hey, here, I need the bus. There's an official stop that everybody knows, the bus operator knows, passengers know, there's a sign, it's ADA compliant, it's on our maps, etc. There's been a lot of advancements on our website, and we're working on various contracts to ensure that Robert's buses show up on GPS. So there's just a lot of stuff that's progressing. And I don't know if there's anything more specific that you're looking for on that.
Well, is there anything else that Mr. Candle can speak on that you would like to have him talk about? I guess not.
I can add a little something. I wanted to make sure I mentioned this. One of the projects I'm super excited about was a grant proposal that we went in and put in this summer. And the grant proposal is for 9 paratransit vehicles that are electric. And, when we talk about full life and full inclusion, I fully believe that folks that are needing paratransit should fully be able to participate in addressing climate change and solving the carbon pollution problem. And so by bringing in these paratransit vehicles that are electric, we have that benefit of, reduced cost, maintenance over time, reduced emissions, but they're also quieter and smoother. So if you have folks that, get anxious because of the noise or the movement, that's going to be a benefit of these vehicles. So for me, when I think about equity and inclusion, I think about in all of the things, like everybody should have the ability to participate in addressing sustainability, addressing climate change in our community. And we just created a new office, in the county of Hawaii called the Office of Sustainability, Climate Equity, and Resilience. It's a long title, but it's OSCAR is the acronym. And we included equity in the title of this office because that is a critical piece of addressing these challenges across our community. And the idea of OSCAR is that whenever we're making a decision in the county, we're asking us, how does this impact climate? How does this impact sustainability? And how is this equitable? Are we including the right people in the conversations? And, that's part of what is so great about these forums is we do genuinely care, but sometimes we don't think of things, or we just don't know. And coming back to the mass transit issue, we had somebody call my office and say, the lift on the bus has been broken for like 2 months. And we told mass transit, they took care of it right away, no problem. But we didn't find out about it until 2 months. It's been going on for 2 months. So, as soon as something like that happens, no shame. It doesn't bother us. We are here to help. Give us a call and we'll take care of it for you. We'll do our best to address it as quickly as possible. We're here to be responsive and, do our best to support everybody in our community.
Which led me to another thought. I'm so glad she brought up the vans, because one of the things that's happened is on our paratransit system, we've doubled our ridership in the last year when we started adding in the Puna district and stuff like that. And so I know that I'm sending one of our program managers and our garage manager up to Oahu to look at one of those kind of electric vans, entirely electric. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I've been pestered quite frequently from my program manager, we're going to need more vans, we're going to need more vans. So I was pretty excited when she brought up the potentials for that 9. So that's also very exciting. Yes.
Mahalo. Okay, now this is going to be a heavy question, all right? Maui fires killed many people, left many people homeless. Citizens continue to suffer from a major breakdown in the system. We hear about it constantly. Poor leadership, lack of emergency planning and practice, access to supports and services. What planning is currently taking place to ensure that each island, this is a state level question, and it's also a local question, and specifically Hawaii Island is better prepared for major disasters, including fires, floods, volcanoes, hurricanes, and major earthquakes? That would be the first part of this question.
Okay, I guess I'll start since my brother is the fire chief, so that makes sense. So what's happening directly right now, I would say at all levels of government, but I can speak to the state, is that on the House side of things, we've convened maybe 8 to 10 committees specific to areas of response to the fire in Lahaina. And to wildfire and emergency management in general. So the committee that I'm a part of is specific to wildfire prevention going forward. So one of the things we did is we hosted my brother to basically just ask him a bunch of questions from someone who's been dealing with this here on Hawaii Island for his entire career, whether it's brush fires up in the Waikoloa side or on Mana Road. We're all over the island, right? So out of that, I believe next week or the week after, we're going to have a public hearing where we're going to release a draft of our findings from this process. And it's basically a pretty simple, straightforward document. It'll be made publicly available very soon. And it's, hey, these are the things that we believe are wrong with our current system. These are the things that we think we're doing right. Here are opportunities to improve. Some of it's very basic stuff. My brother has been in direct contact with the Department of Transportation leadership, Director Sniffen, to address the kind of areas directly around state highways, as an example. A lot of the brush is difficult to maintain, it's expensive to maintain, and over the years, it's become a much bigger problem. So that's like one simple thing that they're addressing now. But beyond that, one of the issues, I actually was just talking to a friend's parents the other day out in Waikoloa, which is obviously an area that's going to be directly impacted and has been directly impacted. One of the larger fundamental problems is that we have so much land tied up in the hands of very few, very large landowners. And depending on who you talk to, they don't really have a legal responsibility to keep and maintain those areas, even if it's around housing. So there are some legal changes that we're going to have to make, whether it's at the state or county level, to hold these folks responsible for fire prevention on their own private lands. Because, when the fire department guys are here, there are limitations in terms of what they can and cannot do on private lands. But beyond that, the state and county, as very large landowners themselves, need to do a better job of maintaining those areas. The private sector, whether it's the response from HECO or potentially an entity that ends up replacing them, depending on how things go over the next couple of years, that's going to be a big factor. But there is something that we can do, and one of the findings that we're going to be releasing is just the data around wildfire management in Hawaii in general. Over 90% of all wildfires within our state are caused by people. And that's something that we can do, is just do a better job of educating folks in terms of how to prevent these things, just be more mindful around hazardous areas, but also not take for granted the fact that just because we live in an area on this side of the island where there's a lot of rain, that we believe we might be safe. One of the first things I did in the wake of the Lahaina fire is kind of ask my brother, hey, if this was you in this area, what would you have done? And, he said very frankly, that fire up on Mana Road very easily could have been very tragic. And a lot of our communities, even in Hilo, anywhere where you have a lot of old wooden buildings, which is all of downtown and all of our neighborhoods here in Hilo, are just as susceptible. Because yes, you may not have a brush fire start in an area around Hilo because of its moisture content, but it doesn't have to start out there. It could be a downed power line right in the middle of downtown. It sparks a fire. You have 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and now all of downtown is on fire. We can't take things for granted just because we live on this side of the island. So stay tuned. There is going to be that draft report out very soon specific to wildfires. And there is going to be a public hearing, and we're going to develop legislation and responses going into this upcoming session.
So thanks, Chris. So at the county level, we learned a lot of valuable lessons here at home. And Hawaii County specifically is no stranger to a lot of natural disasters. And so myself, Heather, and our colleague Ashley Kirkowitz did a lot of work to completely overhaul our civil defense and our emergency response code, and really created a system to make it very trigger ready. So whether it was a wildfire or lava or flooding, we have basically a playbook within county government, specifically civil defense, on how to respond. A lot of scripted responses that can be pushed out to the public that conveys very clear and concise information. In addition to all of that messaging, we've made it a priority to make sure that whether it's on the radio, through social media, or on the television, that they're provided scripts so that those with disabilities unable to hear can actually read it, whether it is on social media, hence being trigger ready, so that when things happen, we can just pull these things out of a playbook and get them ready and out to our communities. In addition to the work that Chris is doing with fire, because his brother, we're also incredibly lucky to have a philanthropic partner like the Sayer Foundation. They have contributed millions. I'm not going to lie, millions. They have helped our fire department purchase water trucks to address wildfires, especially in the Waikoloa area. They've actually helped us purchase a helicopter along with all of the equipment to do fire rescue. And then they've also worked with our federal agency, those up at Puhakoloa, who have been great community partners for our incredibly rural areas like Mana Road and those areas that Puhakoloa is adjacent to. So, I just want to remind everybody, we here on Hawaii Island, we know how to talk to one another. We have family relationships along with a great working relationship, not only within the legislative body, but all of our friends and family that serve our community. So we're just really blessed to have that.
I will add, I was speaking with one of the members of the leadership in Maui yesterday, and our county has been sending people over to help support the efforts over there. And they said every one of the folks from Hawaii County knows exactly what they're doing, and they've been incredibly supportive, and they're just rock stars. But, in addition to what Chris and Sue have said, there's one other message that I really want to make sure is part of this conversation, and that is about preparedness. And the last couple of years, I've sat on a national committee on resilience at the National Association of Counties. It's the Resilient Counties Advisory Board. And it's kind of late to the game, but what I'm starting to hear in that advisory board is the message of we need to do a better job of inclusion in our disaster preparedness efforts. Yes, and part of that is it's everybody's. This is a Kako thing. This is everybody's responsibility to, especially if you have needs for your family, if there's issues that you might have with evacuation, make sure your neighbors know, make sure your communities know, right? Because with our very large county, very, very distributed populations, sometimes it's going to be your next door neighbor, your community members that are going to be there to help first. So, there are certainly responsibilities that we have as government, but as citizens and community members, I encourage you to do everything that you can to prepare your own households, make sure you've got your network within your community, and that you're sharing with us what your needs are in potential disaster situations. Because, again, we can't always think of everything. We do our best. We're pretty smart, generally speaking. But, there are things that we don't necessarily just don't tune into unless we hear it from you in the community. So make sure you're sharing your needs in advance. Like, as much as we can prepare, the better we'll all be when that event actually happens.
Thank you for those answers to a very complicated question. It's a multifaceted question or issue that is really elicits a lot of passion and a lot of thought that goes along with that. Mass transit again. See, you shouldn't have said anything, but you did. So this is a question from the audience. Large twin-size strollers are not allowed. Can this be changed?
That is a tough question. I don't like that question because it is one of those situations where currently we have a large number of different types of vehicles. We design policies and procedures based on the most safe practice that we can. So with such a diversity of vehicles, it's tough to say yes to that when some vehicles just can't accomplish that. What I will say further is that I'm very interested in input from the community on what the community's needs are, and have already made changes based on feedback that I've gotten in some public forums, including Revitalize Puna last week. So I'm very interested in continuing the change that has already taken place, and so I am interested in being able to take a look at that question more seriously than just a public setting, and I'm sure that my partner has already made notes about the question so that we can take a look at whether we could really make that change or not. And it would take some assessment of what our newer buses are going to be able to do for us. I know at my last transit agency, we made the change of allowing strollers to not have to be folded up, and that was pretty controversial within the community because it was sharing space with our honored citizens there as far as securement. And so we put into practice the procedure that mobility devices had precedence over strollers, but if there was an opportunity for a stroller to remain unfolded, we had rules, had to have the brakes on, had it secured, etc. So there's flexibility in my past and interest in flexibility going forward.
Mahalo. I do have one more question for you, but I think I'll hold off on it because you're getting too eager. No, I have a question. This question came up from the audience, and it has to do with, the last session, the legislature passed a dental bill, restoration of dental benefits. Could you speak to that? Because the question was limited resources for dental. Can you talk about what is being done? So.
Yeah, I think, same thing. The government's complicated, limited resources, but there are things we can do that either do not cost a ton of money or that prioritize the money that we do have a little bit better. And one of the things we did is restore adult dental benefits last year, which is, I guess this year. It feels like last year already.
It was this year.
Yeah. So that's a good example, though, of when you have a concentrated community effort around a very specific issue. We had a variety of nonprofits and advocacy groups come together. They worked specifically with several key legislators to develop a course of action. And when you have that kind of momentum behind something, then you're really in a good place. And at that point, your chances of success are really high. We pass about 200 bills in a given legislative session, but that's out of about 3,300. So you're looking at less than a 10% chance of success. And a lot of those are just routine things like approving collective bargaining agreements for the unions, setting the state budget, approving various things. So it's actually even less than that. So to get something passed, then, you really need a couple of key legislators in very specific parts of the legislature to really go to bat for it, to advocate for it. If it's a regional thing, like, this is a Big Island specific problem, then you really need that whole team to come together, or at least the ones who are popular, which depends on the year. Some guys not popular, some guys popular. And then, or you need a subject matter chair, right? So in that case, who's in charge of our health committee or human services? And let me target them specifically, get them on board so that they can kind of lead the charge. And in my experience, for whatever that's worth, that's been the most effective way to approach an issue, is if you have something, bring everyone together, really develop that personal relationship so that they have a sense of ownership over an issue. When it was the East Hawaii Child Welfare Services legislation, it was a few East Hawaii legislators, it was community partners and advocates, it was all of that coming together to actually get something done. And I think the adult dental issue is pretty much along the same lines.
Yes, it is. Very important. We got a lot of feedback before and afterwards, a lot of positive. And speaking about feedback, I have one here. This is a suggestion. A suggestion of the creation of a deaf center on this island. It says here the state passed a bill that would provide Big Island a blind service center. And they wondered if that could be partnered with a deaf center. So you have a blind and deaf service center.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look into the specifics of like the current project and that sort of thing, but that's a good example, though. And a lot of times it's easier to get things done if your voice is amplified, right? If you have, I think, Senator Ocasio was speaking to that intersectionality. A lot of times that can be for your benefit, right? If you have a specific issue, whether it's a blind or deaf issue, if you have both of those communities come together, all of the advocacy groups, then you're more likely to have a chance of success. But also, I would say that in a lot of times in state government specifically, it's easier to ask for too much and get it done all one time than it is to go piece by piece. And I think a lot of times that's counterintuitive. Like whenever a nonprofit comes to me and says, "Oh, we need $300,000 for this project," I tell them ask for like 600, because that way they'll be like, "Oh, we'll give them half," and then you get all 300, right? So a lot of times it's like that, though. If you have an ask, come in, ask for a big ask, because the nature of the legislature of needing to balance a budget, of trying to take care of 76 people and make all of them happy at the same time, or at least enough that you can still keep your job in leadership, so you stay popular. A lot of times that's what it comes down to, is like, oh, we'll give them half of what they asked for and hopefully they're happy. So don't be afraid to ask for too much. It's easier to do that, kind of a shoot for the stars kind of a thing, yeah? I have to go pick up my daughter for soccer, though.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. I wanted to give you state questions. I thought that was a good one. I'm going to forward. There's some more suggestions here that have to do with that, so I'll make sure you get a copy of this. Okay, so now we're going to ask another transportation question. Okay, the question is, mass transit again. Is there any plan to add routes for Puna District, basically, from Hawaiian acres, beaches to Mountain View?
That is a tough question, and I appreciate it because I hear the community's interest in that topic, and it's not just on Puna side; it's the island. And I know that we just went through a big expansion on service, and I know what the impact of that increased expansion has been on our equipment. So I'm not going to go too deep into the answer on that, other than to say I know about the interest. I know personally firsthand. For example, before I started here, I came over the week before I decided to ride the system from the airport out to my place in Hawaiian Acres, near my place in Hawaiian Acres. And it took me 3.5 hours because one of those routes is a 2-hour service. And at one point I became a little bit concerned that I was going to miss that 2-hour window somehow, because at the time it wasn't terribly clear exactly where the stop was or which direction I needed to go. And so I've spent some time and energy trying to learn some of the challenges for myself, which I've done. But then even in these settings, I learn constantly about some of the challenges of what our service represents. So I'm very interested in expanding our service in a lot of ways, not just, and like I said, not just in Puna, but even like up in Hawai'i, we've got a bus that serves both workers for the hotels and school children going over to Waimea. And what we did is we put that bus in there halfway between the two groups, and so we've got one group that's barely making it to work on time, putting pressure on the operator to leave early, while school children and moms are chasing down the bus who might have left a minute or two early to get the workers, and then they get to wait at the school for quite some time. So I've heard these examples in many different settings, in many different locations, and including something about Seaview. I got it in my notes. Just learned that one last weekend. So anyway, all that to say that as we get our new buses, and they are coming, we've just gotten 4 in the last 2 weeks, and I've got, yes, you have no idea the challenge of getting that. Or maybe you do, but it has been a challenge to get this equipment here. We've gone through a bunch of things, and so we've got those 4. We got 4 more on the way. We're putting together a contract right now with Gillig Corporation for 4 battery electric buses with the charging equipment. That contract, we can get up to about 22 buses over the course of 5 years. And so that represents monumental change for this entire island for our equipment. And that's just kind of half of the puzzle. There's many other pieces going. So we're still dependent on some very old, very used equipment that my team is working literally very, very hard to keep running. And we've run into some challenges. We honestly have. And so I've kind of rededicated my personal mission internally towards supporting the maintenance department more than I have, because I've been focused on contracts and all kinds of stuff leading up to this. But now I'm really pushing into that to see what I can do to help them keep our old buses going and get our new buses online.
A lot of good things happening with mass transit, and it would be remiss not to mention, that we have a mass transit master plan that we've been initiating step by step. That's a really excellent plan, and Councilmember Liloy has been involved in the mass transit side of things for pretty much her entire career on the council. And I think she and I are both big fans of mass transit, because we recognize it's been proven again and again across this country that the best way to improve economic outcomes for a community is to have a reliable mass transit system. And so when we talk about the challenges we have with traffic in some of these areas, the best solution may not be more lanes. The best solution may be better mass transit. When we add more lanes to freeways, we end up adding more cars. We add more vehicle miles traveled. Whereas if we improve the bus system, and they're cruising along in the specialized bus lane, and everybody else sitting there like, I want on that. That's the kind of situation that we want to be creating, where we have these traffic challenges. And so, just like I said, Councilmember Liloy and I, big fans of anything to support mass transit. And just to kind of respond to some of the comments from our friend on the state legislature, the great thing about council is we only have to convince 4 other people to agree with us, and there's none of this popularity contest and things like that. We all represent our own districts, but I think we all share a commitment that we serve the entire county. And so when we're negotiating, deliberating these things, we're not just thinking about what's best for our community, but for the community as a whole. And we're both really on board on supporting the improvement of mass transit, and our new administrator as he takes the reins.
They keep on telling me to hold the microphone. I should just put it right on my nose. If I do this, I think I got it. So I'm going to hold it to my nose. Thank you very much. I do have a question I have 2 questions, but I think we'll ask one question, then we'll go on a break. I'll give you a chance to eat and do whatever else you need to do. This has to do with the COVID response, all right? Okay. The reason why I'm asking COVID, because I had to do Zoom meetings for the last 3 years instead of having this in person. So we did Zoom. So the question I have, was question number 3. So, what are some of the lessons we learned from our response to COVID, and what has been done to better prepare Hawaii Island for future health emergencies, including citizen engagement? I'm about to break. I'll ask a lot of these questions. I have one more about them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for that question. We're still learning lessons, I think, is where I should start with respect to COVID and in our response there. When we look across the various counties in the state of Hawaii, first of all, I'll say that as a state, we did really well. We did really, really well. And part of that was quick action, quick response, quick decision from some of the leadership. Being an island state, having rural communities with limited hospital supplies, limited oxygen, limited ICU units, it was critical that there was a quick response, and we slowed the flow of cases, right? If we had been hit with a spike of cases early on, we would have been completely overwhelmed. So let me just acknowledge that as a state, we did remarkably well. In addition, I would say that our county, in particular with respect to the county workers, the people that we engage with at the county level, at the government, our state workers and all of that, we did a lot to protect our workers in terms of, allowing for remote work, making sure that we had plexiglass, we were providing PPE, all of that stuff. So I'm actually really proud of what the county was able to do. That said, I think, every situation like this presents an opportunity to learn, not from particularly the COVID situation for me, but another emergency situation that occurred in my district, like right after I took office, was an understanding that we actually don't provide our council members or our appointed officials any kind of emergency or crisis training, believe it or not. And so one of the things that I've been working on, and we just got this settled, is training from FEMA specifically designed for elected officials, people in appointed position, on both disaster preparedness as well as crisis leadership response. And, we're going to be partnering up with the administration to provide that for everybody, help us build the skill set to respond and make these decisions in a crisis situation. That's our first two courses. Our third course is actually on the public communication and outreach piece. And again, these are all developed by FEMA. They actually developed them in response to 9/11, so they're vetted programs that have been around for a while now. And I'm really excited to be able to bring those in for my colleagues. Again, this is another program that is including the disability lens, the equity lens, into all of the educational piece of it. So I'm really pleased that we're going to have that opportunity to support our county through that sort of training.
As Heather mentioned, there's definitely a lot of lessons learned, and another area that we learned was really the gaps in our broadband communication connectivity. And so Hawai'i Island specifically is really leading the way to deploy a lot of that technology into our rural communities. So we're building a very robust broadband network to make sure that specifically our rural areas have that ability to get online and get connected. In addition to, we're working with a lot of partners because in the equity lens, we recognize families may only have one computer. So when we had to go to online schooling, it was very challenging for families with multiple children, but also imagine those that we advocate for with the disability community. So we've also developed a program to help deploy that training or deploy those equipment, laptops, computers, into our rural communities. And we always balance our disability community with our seniors and our kupunas who technology's rushed for them, so we're looking at programs to deploy for our seniors that they can actually learn how to get online, get an email address, download an app onto their phone. So those are the very many messages or many lessons that we've learned, and then we've actually begun to really embrace them and look at ways to find funding, help community, but also help community stay connected.
This isn't really my area, but what I wanted to comment on is that I've learned that there's a possibility of community connectedness that is more difficult when there's no hybrid situation. So, for example, we have the Transportation Commission meeting, and we've kept that as a hybrid model where you can meet in person or be online. So you can check our county website for the Transportation Commission meeting, observe the interactions, and you could even be a transportation commissioner.
Works for me.
Or many of the other transportation, or not transportation, other boards. So sorry.
This microphone makes you say funny things. It's just, so we'll take a short break. Would you like, what, up to 15 minutes? About fine? Pizza, that's right. Pizza. Pizza. You know, you got to say pizza. That's fine. Anything else you need? There's anything over there? They have a lot of stuff.
All right. While everyone has pizza and talk story to each other, we have a special presentation. Glasses. So, yeah. There's pizza back there. There's bathroom outside. There's a lot of organizations here that you might want to go and talk story with. But for at this moment, I would like to do a special presentation. Able Hawaii Artists, Full Life Hawaii, and our East Hawaii Island Legislative Forum Planning Committee would like to present the Mana Ikaleo Award to Jesse Floyd for leading us with a strong voice of advocacy for persons with disabilities on Hawaii Island. Not only is he a strong voice, not only does he have a strong voice, but also long. My last phone conversation with Jesse was 39 minutes long. But it was inclusive, yes. So Jesse's service to our East Hawaii Island community began on August 2012 and will end at the end of this year, December 2023. And that's 11 years of Jesse talking out loud. I mean, advocating. Some of Jesse's accomplishments over the years include coordinating the many years of Day at the Capitol for Hawaii Island. Jesse Floyd established the East Hawaii Island Disability Legislative Forum in 2015. I know, because I was there. Also, and let's give him a lei. Thank you, Lisa. Jesse also then helped to establish the West Hawaii Island Disability Legislative Forum in 2016 and developing and incorporating the 5 important areas of living, which is education, healthcare, employment, transportation, and housing, which is part of the State Council on Development Disabilities 5-year plan. One of the biggest accomplishments was to help with the implementation of accessible transportation in the Puna Community Development Plan. Another accomplishment that Jesse has over the years is supporting agencies be more educated about Employment First, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and Workforce Innovative and Opportunity Act. So what will Jesse miss the most? Well, aside from me, Jesse says that he's going to miss the people the most, the frontline staff and participants. So congratulations, Jesse. I have Che here to present you with the Mana Ikaleo plaque. Looks familiar, Jesse? Thank you, Che. Do you want to say a few words, Jesse?
Aloha. Usually I say a lot. Sometimes I say too much. But today I'm going to say mahalo. It's been a pleasure. Aloha. We're going to get started again. And if I don't have your undivided attention, well, what can I say? So I have a note here that was written. I will not say who it's from, but I do have their email address. And by the way, thank you very much for your email address. I'm going to address this question because it's addressed It's actually, this is up our Dididi Council, what we do. I'll read it to you in full. I am a quadriplegic who is totally dependent on a caregiver for all personal care. Okay. When I lived in California, I had 80 hours a week for caregiving services. I moved back home to Hawaii, and I had to fight to get just 33 hours a week. Please find a solution to get more caregiving hours to all who need it. The DD Division has what is known as you can appeal. Complaints Resolution Division. It's on their webpage. Go to that webpage and say, if it hasn't been past the length of time that they allow, you can go ahead and appeal. And I encourage you to appeal. Now, it does help if you bring documentation. So get all your documentation in order. I have a second. This is from the same person. This is a good one, too. I'm currently working on my second college degree and started applying for jobs only to find out if I work, I will lose Medicaid. I am now not able to work because I need a caregiver, which is provided through Medicaid. Please pass legislation for waivers on Medicaid buy-in and options for all disabilities, physicals and IDD. We need to be able to work without losing our Medicaid benefits. I would like you to contact me. I will give you more information, but then contact me, jesse.floyd@doh.hawaii.gov. If you are working, a person with disabilities who is working, and you do get Medicare, you get Medicaid, you are eligible because you have a disability to apply to access what is called and achieve a better life experience, called Enable Act. It's passed by the legislature. If we had our legislator here, he would have talked about it. This was passed a number of years ago. What that does, it allows you to set aside some of your earnings that are non-taxable that do not go up against your Medicaid limits. So you can put money away and you can work without losing that money. Now, however, there is a very important thing to remember. That money is not, you can't bequeath it to anyone. That money, if something happens to you, if you are the person, that money will go back to the state. Now, my suggestion is have an equal insurance policy. So if something does, that money goes to whoever you want to benefit it to. Okay, so if you have $10,000 in your ABLE account, then have a $10,000 insurance policy. And the ABLE account, if you're interested, type in Hawaii ABLE account, and it'll take you to Oregon, State of Oregon webpage, and they'll have a link to the Hawaii ABLE account. And the ABLE account is very fungible, which means you can go ahead and you can manipulate your funding in that. More information at that, Hawaii ABLE account. And again, if that doesn't answer your questions, please email me. Okay. Now I have a few questions here that really I thought would be perfect for the state questions. But you know what all state questions are? Nobody's thought about asking council members. Who thought? Changing tables. So they're talking about having a state bill for changing, but I think counties can address that, changing tables. So the question is, how can the county assist in the building of and installing of changing tables, so that individuals have access to them more readily on all, the building? How can the county do that?
Yeah, I was talking during the break with some folks, and they were bringing up issues related to healthcare and our healthcare system, and oftentimes when it's a subject like that, people say, "Oh, it's the state, it's DOH." I never liked that answer. It's all of these things involve all of us. Like, we're all part of the community, and so we have at the county certain tools that we can leverage, certain things that are in our jurisdiction. So when I hear a question about something, I don't say whose responsibility is it. My ask is, how can I use the tools and the jurisdiction I have? How can I leverage that towards this issue? So, to your point with the changing tables, we have the authority over the building code, which determines what are the requirements as far as how buildings are designed, and that's a place where we can, as the county, be more strict than the state. We couldn't actually take away anything that had to do with access or anything like that, which is good, right? But we can be higher in terms of our standards. That's certainly something that we can look at. And, it wasn't until the West Hawaii Forum that I had understood that was something that people were looking for as far as access, is the adult changing tables. And I think looking at that for public facilities is something we really should consider.
To build off of that, Councilmember Kimball and I, along with Councilmember Kirkowitz, is looking at a needs assessment for all of our county facilities and trying to prioritize them. And that's one area where we can lean in, and if there are funds to make those facilities ADA compliant, as we capture those dollars to rehabilitate that facility, drop in the opportunities for universal bathrooms, which would then address our disability community, but our kupunas.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. Hold my note. I have a transportation question, because I talk with Mr. Candle, and it's not about buses, not about handy vans, it's not about vouchers, it's not about accessibility. It's about emergency planning and preparing. There's a saying that many of us do, that when they start widening a road and improving a road, people say, well, that should have happened 25 years ago. Well, we're here, so what should we put in place so people 25 years can say, hey, you know what, they got it right. Planning emergency bus routes that are lanes that are built for buses, for emergency vehicles, and since we do have, we've had like 2 cases already of evacuation needs. In the case that's, a volcano all of a sudden just goes kabloy, we can go ahead and people can get out using the evacuation route and using emergency vehicles, and the roads aren't all tied up and aren't all into a mess. What can we do about that?
I guess I'll go first on that one. Well, first of all, I think that it's important to act as a community and work together as a community, because sometimes we look at these problems as being a transportation problem or a housing problem or somebody else's problem. And I feel that when we work together, we come up with solutions that work for everybody. So when I was talking on the break just a little bit ago, we were talking about a transit lane, or first we started talking about an extra traffic lane and, how that will just get absorbed, etc. So then we were talking about dedicated lanes. And really, that is something that's key to emergency evacuation as well. And I know when I first came here, we had that tropical storm kind of brush by, and it was not in anybody's forefront to make sure that our agency was prepared to respond to evacuation situations. And I noticed that in the planning since the tragedy in Maui, that there's been an interest in including transportation in that emergency evacuation preparedness. So there's a lot of things that come together as a community to respond to various topics.
Yeah, I know after the Lahaina fire, and even before that, really, I mean, we've had some massive wildfires here. Fortunately, no loss of life and not a significant loss of structures, but there were a number of areas that were built or allowed to be built that didn't have clear access, emergency access or alternative accesses. And I can say with that the increased focus on that particular issue, I know our fire department and the Department of Public Works is really taking a deep look at where we can open up some of these potential emergency routes. I can speak specifically for my district. Rep. Todd mentioned it earlier that a lot of the areas on our island are owned by large landowners, so there's pros and cons to that in that, in this case, there's one group that we need to negotiate with, but if we can open up some of their roadways to be also emergency accesses, we're going to be able to provide a lot of alternative routes for our folks. One of the things that I'm kind of excited about with this is looking at making those trails for people to use in the meantime, so they're not regularly being used as roads, but they can be used for public access trails, and then in the event of emergency, they can be opened up for vehicular access. So that's something that we're looking at in our district, but I do, overall, the county, particularly fire department and public works are looking at that right now. I don't know if you want to add anything, Sue.
That's their answer, and they're sticking to it. They just told me that, so I'll repeat it. I have some questions here that were posed, they're written. One of them is about invasive species, and the other one is about cutting down trees that are 100 years old. I want to let you know that those questions are, while they're good questions, they are not disability-related questions. If that is a question that you really need to ask your legislature, whether it's county or state, I will forward this to them, but you need to follow up because I don't have any contact information about you. So I think they would like to discuss this with you, but they can't because they don't know who you are. So please try to tie your questions to disability related, because that's what we're here for. Now I do have a question here. This is a question that really it stumped most of us. And I don't know if the county has this, but does the county have access to any numbers of people in the county that have disability?
Well, yes, we do, Jesse. Actually, there's a study that is done annually from the National Disabilities Council. I believe that we are at 14% for our district, and that includes physical as well as developmental disabilities. Of the 4 major counties, we have the highest rate of residents with disabilities.
So how would one, if they wanted to access that, is there what government agency has that? They can just Google it?
Yeah, they can just Google it. It is through the Federal Department of Health, I believe, Health and Human Services.
Federal Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, but I actually was just looking at it for that grant that I mentioned earlier as part of the statistics that I provided in the grant. So it was really easy for me to find with a pretty simple Google question.
Yes. So here's a question. This is a suggestion, but I'm going to throw it out as a question. Is there any way the county can look at helping creation of a deaf digital resource library so that parents can access digital books in sign language to preserve Hawaiian Sign Language and to offer language access and acquisition? Now, they say the state already has a blind and print disabled library. We are not looking for a bricks and mortar building, instead only online, but that would come through, let's say, the ADRC. Come through a deaf digital resource library.
That's an interesting idea, and I'm going to walk back to the previous question about invasive species, because you're going to get this walk with me on this. You actually kind of said, let's not answer that question because it's not a disability issue. Well, I would disagree. About invasive species. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. You said it's not a disability issue. I'm gonna disagree with you and say that it is, because I'm an ecologist by training, and so I think about things about ecosystems and systems. And when we're talking about an invasive species, we on this island have a new invasive pest coming in every 6 days. Yeah. Are you an invasive pest? No. No. And so while there may be invasive pests right now that don't have direct impacts on the disability community, there are certainly ones that have indirect impacts. Little fire ants, that there's other ones that have a destructive impact on our agricultural systems. So we're talking food security. All of these things are actually tied together. And I walk back to that because, walking back to this digital library idea, one of the things that we need to be looking at across the county is our digital infrastructure and our digital storage space as a whole, not necessarily only to provide that type of service, but one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, and we've had discussions about this in front of council, is really open data as far as county government, and that includes really transparent, easy to digest budget information for us as decision makers, access to tools that allow us to pull in different data and then make decisions based on that information. So, that's a long answer to your question, but part of what we need to do is build that infrastructure at the county level to be able to host and serve that sort of material. We're definitely thinking about, Sue and I have worked in the past on our grant and aid program, and we had some discussion about the accessibility of that. So we're definitely thinking about the accessibility of the data that we present as part of the whole conversation about how we are digitally interfacing with the community.
One project that I can immediately think about is the work that Representative Richard Onishi is doing to co-locate a library with our mass transit facility, and that connection between people waiting for transportation while having access to a library and the resources in that library. A deaf digital library in co-location with some of our mass transit facilities would be a natural fit. And I can already think of one that we could actually push in and lean into our current legislative body at the state to help bring that forward.
Now, do you have a question? Okay, got it. That's your right here? I've been asking the questions, haven't I? That's my list, yes. There you go. Well, I'm going to ask another question off this list, but I'm going to ask a question that's off your list first. Okay? This has to do with employment first. As you know, the legislature last session passed the Employment First bill, and the governor signed into law that mandates employment first to be the law of the land. How is the county fully implemented, at the county level, fully implementing the Employment First law? So I have this as why is disability employment month important, but why is it important at the county level?
Thank you for that question. At the county level, we have the opportunity to build capacity for employment for those with disability around two spots. One with the university system and the other with our ag farmers. there was a very robust discussion yesterday about creating job opportunities by locating manufacturing facilities that help our farmers, but also leaning into the university systems to help build capacity to provide employment in those areas. That was one area. The other area that the Department of Education is doing is everybody says farm to school, but it's farm and school. There's a relationship between farm and school, whether it's teaching farmers and or growing food for kids in school. And so the goal there is to create a central kitchen, because DOE is learning that to have a cafeteria in each and every school is far too expensive. And it would be a better use of their money, because they have limited resources, like our friend Chris Todd mentioned, to have one central kitchen in which we can employ people. Our farmers could provide all of the goods and services, whether it's our ranchers with the meat or our farmers with our fruits and vegetables, to a central kitchen, have job training opportunities and employment opportunities for everyone, and then transport that into the schools. So we have two models that are coming forward. One is out in Waianae, and another one is going to be tested here in Hilo, right in Panaeva, where a lot of our farmers are already. And we actually have 4 schools, charter schools, and 6 DOE schools. So there's a really ripe situation for Hawaii Island, specifically in Hilo, for job creation as it relates to farmers and education.
Hold it to my nose. Thank you very much. I do happen to have another question. This has to do with a suggestion. A parent resource center for families here on this island to support disabilities and the deaf, basic and hard of hearing. I'm thinking, again, we have a natural fit with the ADRC, but within the ADRC, have a parent resource center. So that was a suggestion. So do you think that's workable?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely workable, and I think that the ideal situation for something like that is maybe an arrangement where the resource center is nonprofit run and managed, and maybe the county is providing. Maybe the county is providing the campus some financial resources, but Sue and I share the philosophy that a lot of the most important things for the community are community-led and government-supported. You folks often know the best way to do things, and you're most nimble and most effective, and our job is really to support those efforts. So I could see something like a parent resource center being something that would be a community-led effort that we would support.
Okay, so Mark, co-host, he just told me he has a question, and I'm going to give him a chance so I can rest my vocal cords.
Thanks, Jesse. I wish Chris Todd was here. I guess he's more in charge or aware of more like the housing. But for a lot of the old-time advocates like myself who've been co-advocating for our people with disabilities for a while here, we've found some things that work and some things that don't. I don't know if this is a question, but more of a statement that since I've sort of transferred over to working for hospice, and I'm at people's homes a lot, and I advocate for patients who are living their last 6 months of life. What I've noticed is that, and to backtrack, when I started going into disability advocacy, I was to tell people everyone becomes disabled through age. And interestingly enough, 15 years later, I'm at that supporting people who are dying. And what I see often is that people who are dying are having a difficult time dying at home because their house is not accessible. And so what I'd like to maybe suggest is that as legislators, that you folks think about what we are always thinking about, in that one day, I too, you too, will need your home to be accessible so you can not only age in place, but also die with your family there and not having financial hardship, retrofitting things to make wheelchairs fit, etc. So I not challenge you folks to really think about that, but I really think that you think about that for your personal life in your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mar, and thank you. Yes. Yeah, thank you for working with hospice. I had both my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law go through hospice, and for our family, that process was so important. And I really thank the people that take that work on, because it's an honor, right, to be part of that phase of life. But it's so helpful to the families. So thank you for that. But speaking, this is something we do think about, and that's because the demographics, the statistics that we're being given about our population projections, indicate that we have a rapidly aging population. Our young folks are moving away. I think, 2030, Sue, that they're expecting the numbers to shift so that we have more people on the plus 35 side than below. So it's something we're definitely thinking about in all aspects, with respect to housing, with respect to transportation, with respect to medical services, that we're becoming a kupuna community, and that's something we need to plan for just generally as well as in our own lives. One of the programs that is not going on right now, but it has gone on in the past, and I've really pushed our housing office to support it again, is the residential repair program. And that's a program through the county. It's a grant program that allows for low or no cost grants or loans or grants to help support small projects within your house. So it can be used from anything to repairing a roof to dealing with your termites, dealing with a wastewater issue, in your cesspool, something like that, as well as all of those sort of access, whether it be ramps or handrails in the bathroom, or adjusting all the door frames, whatever needs to be done. But that is one of the programs that is available through the county for support of those kinds of efforts.
Thank you for that. And that brings up an interesting question that I have. And I've talked to many people about this. And as you know, that the Puna district is the fastest growing. It's been booming for a few years, right? Which means that usually when you have growth in an area, you have people moving in. After you get to a certain mass, you have vendors move in, okay? But you may not want. You may not get the vendors that you want to come in. So I'm thinking, what can the county do to manage not just residential growth, but commercial growth, and plan for it accordingly, so that the supports and services are in place that are going to entice young people with disabilities to get employment, to stay on Hawaii Island, and businesses are going to come, just as cows come when they're called to eat. They're going to come. But the county can go ahead and take the leadership role and then not wait for the capitalism. Because capitalism will go ahead and can bring out the worst in businesses come for the profit. They don't normally come for the welfare of the community. But the council represents the welfare of the community. And they can look at areas. They can plan what can go in certain areas and develop as part of their master plan. And maybe the master plan, is the master plan going to be looked at and revised given the economic growth, the exponential growth? And look at how are we going to better manage the big boxes that are going to start coming in. Because, once, like, for example, Puna, that area gets up to about 35,000 people, 40,000. That's where Walmart goes. That's what they target. That's their target population, about 35, 40,000. So I'm saying right now that if the county is lax on it, capitalism will come in. And then what capitalism is going to do, they're going to beat a trail over to Honolulu saying we need to get in there. And then that pressure is going to be on. So what's the county doing?
So the master plan that you're talking about is actually what we call the general plan. And it's timely that you bring that up because the county is currently working on the new general plan. And this is super important because these are supposed to happen every 10 years. This one is happening 15 years plus. Yeah, that's on the optimistic timeline. These are rare opportunities to weigh in on how the county grows. And I hate to use the term grows because it's got a negative connotation to it. Even the word developed has a negative connotation to it sometimes. But it's how we intend for our ecosystem to look over the next 20 years of this, on this island. And so right now is the time that the comment period on the general plan has been extended to March 1st. I encourage you to go look at it, review it, add your comments to it. It is available on the county's Office of Planning website. Again, there's probably no more critical document in the county when it comes to the vision for the future of development across the land. Now, I was talking before a little bit about our jurisdiction and the tools in our toolbox, and there's a former county council member from Kauai. He's now a House rep, Luke Evslin, who always says our two main sources of power in the county are property taxes and land use, because that's what we have the most jurisdiction over. And so, we are having to, in the council now, correct for some very poor decisions made a long time ago. And anybody that's interested in land use and land policy in Hawaii should read Land and Power in Hawaii. You should read that if you haven't read that yet. There's some things that we're having to correct for now. As you say, the Puna area is the largest growth area without any infrastructure really to support that. So now we're having to look at how to go back and correct. And, the tools that we have, again, are incentivizing through land use policy, disincentivizing through land use policy, and or taxes. And so as we're looking forward to what Puna or any other area of the island, for that matter, what it should look like, we're going to work on trying to align those land use policies and those tax policies to be the carrot and stick, if you will, to motivate those kinds of actions. But at a larger level, just again, one more time, plugging in with people, read and respond to the general plan, super critical. Your voice is really important in terms of shaping the future of this island.
I'm a huge advocate for Native Hawaiians, and one thing that makes me incredibly proud and hopeful is that our Department of Hawaiian Homelands and their trust lands can never be gentrified. Nobody can buy them up. So I would suggest all of Puna connect with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and specifically our Maku'u homestead community. They can become a very galvanizing force, leveraging their trust lands and the direct connection that they have with the federal government and their desire to guide land use specifically for those lands that cannot be dictated by others, but by the trust by the beneficiaries themselves, which makes me incredibly hopeful for all of the land use guides that we have in Hawaii County, because their sovereignty of their land use really will keep local families home.
Mahalo. You know, throughout our history, and you go back thousands and thousands of years, there's been, you know, gold has had bad effect on many people. People have done some bad things for gold. They've invaded, you know, oil is another one. Well, now it's not really gold, not really oil, it's people. Where a lot of people mass, that's where the run starts. That's where the pressure builds. Because businesses want to go where the people are. And it's very, very difficult. So I encourage you, get involved, go to the website, put your 2 cents in. Let the council know what you were thinking and what you would like. I think we're going to close a little early. I think we're going to wrap this up now. One last question. If there's no more questions after this, we're going to be power. Currently, hotels and resorts in Hawaii County pay a lower property tax rate than apartments. How can we change this to prioritize housing for local residents? And basically, what type of housing? You know, I think that we need to think about that too.
So I don't think that's an accurate statement.
I just read it.
Yeah, you're just the messenger. No, the hotel tax rate is at a higher rate. It is the highest rate. In addition to that, so the lowest rate right now is for homeowners and for affordable housing, 6.15 per thousand. And then, I know, it gets, data. And then we have our non-homeowner residence tiers. We have 2 tiers, so under 2 million, over 2 million. So those are 2 different rates. And then the hotels are, at the highest rate. And the egg is at 9 point something, but it's taxed differently in terms of the value of the land through various programs. One of the things that we did recently, so about a year ago, we upped the homeowners exemption. So residents that in their primary home, they're now getting a higher exemption. We also increased the categories for age-related additional exemptions. And then most recently, we made an adjustment where if you are offering housing at affordable rentals, or you are on agricultural land, and it was your primary residence, you were protected by this 3% cap. The cap is something that's really important. So everybody who's a homeowner right now, if they're in a residential home and it's their primary residence, they get that cap. And what that means is that each year, regardless of what happens with your neighbors' properties, the value of your home as far as tax purposes can only go up by 3%. So during COVID, when everybody wanted to move out here, and the values of homes skyrocketed by 17% on average, those folks that weren't protected by that 3% cap, their assessments went up. But the folks that were protected, the homeowners, that cap, protected that assessed value. So farmers didn't have that. And so one of the things that we saw during COVID is even though the property taxes typically are low for farmers, without that cap, their home values and their barns, went through the roof. And so we had longtime farmers, having to lose their homes. So I don't know where you started with that question, but you got me talking property taxes.
I think that you're doing great.
Thank you. I love.
I'm
Sue
like
knows
a passenger
this.
on a bus, and all I have to do is enjoy this.
Yeah, I love talking property taxes. It's these things that are super boring, maybe a little bit complex, that are really critical.
Money is never complex or boring.
Yeah. I jest, but when you kind of get talking about these philosophical things about where we're going as far as our trajectory with development, we are a state that was founded fundamentally through an overthrow by plantation owners. And so when you look at the very deep structural organization of our government and our processes, they're designed to benefit large landowners extracting from the land and not necessarily the local community. We were fundamentally organized and set up on that structure. So when Sue and I are working to change this ship, change the direction that we're going, we got to get deep down into the bowels of these tax policies and these land use policies, because they've been set up for over 50 years to emphasize a certain trajectory. And it should be no surprise to any of you that we are where we are because it was set up to go that way. So, you know, I'm getting very deep and philosophical here, but
you're doing fine.
You know, there's some when we think about making major shifts and towards a more progressive, more community focused government, it's these deep structural issues like property taxes that we need to be looking at.
In addition to all of our tax and tax structure, I think there really needs to be some rebranding of different things. Developers tend to have a negative connotation, but they bring housing. They're housing contributors. Commercial activity has a negative connotation because of traffic. They need to be rebranded to entrepreneurial areas. I think when we start labeling things with old labels, we continue to perpetuate the same cycles. And there really needs to be a deep dive in rebranding and calling things that inspire new opportunities. And that is within the general plan. So I'm encouraging all of you. Get involved, lean in. There's community plans within your district, Puna, Waimea, Honoka'a, Kona. Lean in over there and make your voices heard, because unless we start rebranding ourselves to the future that we want to have, we're going to stay stuck. I want to leave it on a positive note. You can always call Heather if you ever want to have that conversation.
Yeah, I'll make a short comment. I don't think growth by definition is bad. I think unmanaged growth is by definition is bad. I think that was the point of the question. I think it's always good for council members to be aware of what future trends are. And hopefully this forum gave you some insight on what some of the future thoughts and trends are when it comes to disabilities and the supports and services. Supports, services, and the community that actually, in many ways, they need the supports, but they by themselves are supports. And they'll support you, given what you're moving forward to on some of these issues. Are there any more questions? And I'm holding the microphone as close to my mouth as I could get. All right, so we're going to close out. We're going to say thank you to the council members, Heather Kimball, council members Sue Leloy, and no, I know. I'm going to build up. I was going to say Mass Transit Administrator Victor Candle. By the way, okay, I will say this one last thing before we go our pal. He's from Oregon. I'm from Idaho. Idaho's better than Oregon. We're done.
We want to mahalo everyone for joining us, and please take a few minutes to complete the survey if you haven't done already, and turn those surveys in to our friends who flew all the way from Honolulu, Che and Zosimo over there. Turn in your surveys. Let's see. So again, please join me in thanking our guests, our legislators, community organizations, and our planning committee and volunteers. Without you, this event would not be successful. So there's still some time for you to stop by vendors that are still here and legislators that are still here to talk stories. And we'll see you folks next year at the 10th Annual East Hawaii Island Disability Legislative Forum. Aloha, everyone.